Hello, YouTube baseheads. Alright, guys, I got a special one for you today. Designing a 6th order series tuned double bandpass enclosure. Alright, some of you probably know what that is, some of you may not. Let me see if I can maybe draw that real quick so we can discuss it. And okay, so you've got one box. See if I can erase maybe a port there. Give a little bit of a port, and then you've got your baffle for your subs, and you've got a port back here. So here's your subs right here. This is your standard six order box. Okay, so you basically have one chamber right here, and it fires in through the port here into this chamber. It mixes, and then it exits right here. That's where the base comes out. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. So this is your standard 6 order series tuned double bandpass enclosure. All right, I've got this document I've been working on up here. I'm going to share the link to this in the description. If I forget, someone just remind me. This is stuff I've been working on this for about 6 months, putting this information together, talking with people at shows about their bandpass enclosures and their experiences. Also talking to some experts online. Really just trying to get some general information for people to start these builds. There is a 6th order enclosure design page on Facebook. I'll get the name for it and I'll put it in the description. So if you join that group, there's a lot of good information there. Also, what I'd recommend doing, especially if you're doing a big build, you can kind of use this information to get you started, and then take that and then go to that Facebook page, post it, and get feedback from people. Now you're going to find the recommendations are just going to be, they're going to be massive. There's the wide variance in what people have experienced and tried. For this one, I'm kind of just giving the standard 6 order, which is a positive ratio. This is or sometimes they call it standard ratio, something like that. And this is where the bottom or back chamber, which is the lows chamber, is smaller than the front chamber, which is going to be the front or top chamber, and that's for highs. Okay. For this one, it's easier to design, less adjustment after build. This is compared to a negative ratio. It's also comparable to like a parallel. Some people think that the series is a lot easier to build because what happens is if you mess up a little bit on that bottom chamber and the port comes into the top chamber, it kind of mixes. So you don't have, by the time it gets to the front of the vehicle, you don't have as much port noise, or some of maybe the mechanical noise might be gone. So it kind of filters some of that noise out. So it's a little bit more forgiving at times. Does fit less subs compared to the negative ratio. The tuning, okay, so the tuning should be an octave apart. So if you tune the bottom rear chamber at 20 hertz, you should tune the top one at 40. If you do 25, then you should do 50, etc. Okay. Really good one to start with is like a 2754. Give or take a little bit. So you can do, if you really want to do low stuff, 2550 is going to be, you're going to be able to play, if you get the box right, you'll be able to play into the teens. So 17 hertz, you should be able to play it. So that's why a 2754, because you'll be able to play down to 20 hertz, no problem with that. And then you'll be able to play up to like, usually about 10 hertz higher. So maybe like around mid 60s. Shouldn't be a problem. And then some people do like a 3060, which is really a good music build. Doesn't really, it's not gonna play quite as low. But anyways, using the high-low tuning. So if your tuning gets too close, you're gonna start to cancel. So the high chamber and the low chamber, because they mix, they're gonna start to cancel each other out. So you need to keep your tuning apart enough. You could close it a little bit. If you wanted to do, say, instead of a 30-60, you want to do like a 30-55, that'd probably be okay. Just notice that as you get a little close to each other, it is going to get a little louder, but you're going to start to cancel out. So, also the same thing, if you tune too far apart, I need to adjust this. By the way, guys, if you notice anything missing in this document, let me know, and I will get some more stuff added. This is just a kind of a basic thing to get people going. If you tune too far apart, it's going to create a dip in the middle frequencies. And let me just draw that for you real quick. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to start coming up with your bandpass. This is, and you're going to hit that first frequency where you're tuned. You have a little dip. You're going to hit another frequency, and it's going to drop off. Okay, so pretend like this is your let's say 30 hertz right here, and this is your 60 hertz. Actually, let's say this is like 70 hertz, because we're tuning too far apart now, and as we tune too far apart, we get this dip right here in the middle. So your frequencies are going to peak right where you're tuned, over here and here, and then as you stretch them far apart, this dip will get more exaggerated. So that's why you don't really want to do that. It's not a good music build. Okay. Let me go ahead and go back up. All right. So we talked about tuning. I think tuning's pretty easy. And there's a little bit, you don't have to stick it, like I said, exactly to that octave apart, but you should stick pretty close to it. Now, the bottom rear chamber size. So this should be approximately 70% to 80% of the manufacturer recommended ported size. So, for instance, the Sundown X 15 recommends 4 cubes ported. So if you think about using that on the bottom chamber or rear chamber, you'd want to go like 3 cubes. Especially if it was standard, like if you're going to put maybe a 4K amp on it, you'd probably want to do that about 4 cubes. It helps going a little smaller. It helps with the cone control. And it helps prevent your subs from bottoming out. And that's going to be a big one. Subs bottoming out. That is a concern with these 6 orders. So you're really gonna want to be kind of aware of that, and kind of do a lot of testing before you just go full tilt when you get the box built. So you can go, for instance, you can go like you can go higher. So I did put here as much as 95%. So if you had that X, you could go maybe 3.75 cubes if you're putting a little less power on it. That wouldn't be a problem at all. Okay. So if you have a ton of power, you're probably going to want to stick closer to that 70%. Once again, shrinking it is going to help with cone control. I know it kind of sounds weird, but if you make the bottom chamber too big, and it's bigger than the recommended ported box size from the manufacturer, what you're going to have happen is you're going to have sloppy lows, and it's not going to sound as good. It's not going to be as tight, and you're going to really risk damaging your sub. Okay. That being said, the front and top chamber size. Okay. So once again, you're going to want to go, we're talking about a positive ratio here, so you're going to want to go bigger than what you have on the bottom size. It's going to be, it's going to help with SPL getting a little louder. Right here, I put a good option is 50% bigger, so that'd be a 1 to 1.5 ratio box. That's a pretty popular one. Going somewhere around that is usually pretty popular. If you go bigger than about 180%, you can start to have soft part damage. What happens is you've got a lot of loading on the bottom or rear chamber, which is helping keep the sub in control, but that top chamber just got so big that it doesn't really provide any cone control on that side, and so your speakers can tend to kind of shred, just destroy themselves. And what happens, let me go ahead and draw this out. So I'm going to draw, let's say, the top and bottom chamber real close in size, and I'm going to kind of draw a little bit of cabin gain in there. So if you've got a decent cabin gain, you might actually find that you're a little louder in the back. Actually, let me get rid of these dog ears, because we're going to we're going to do a really good box shouldn't have those. So we'll go up, and you might get pretty loud, and you might kind of hit the other tuning and fade off. So this kind of happens if you don't have a big enough front chamber. You get this, it's pretty loud back here. It gets kind of windy in the lows. So now if let me go ahead and clear that. Now at the same time, if your front chamber is really big, you're going to kind of come up here in the back, and then you're going to kind of come up here, and then kind of fade off. So you're going to have a real high bump in the highs. That's why a 1 to 1.5 ratio is really popular, because it tends to kind of balance. There is a program online that people use. I think it's called Horn RSP. Is that what it is? Horn RSP right here. People use this to design 6 orders. It's very complicated to use and for beginners. And once you throw it in your vehicle, it's not going to resemble the graph at all anyways. So a lot of people just design it without that. But I'm just letting you know that is available if you are interested. Okay. So if you do on your top and front chamber size, going bigger than this really creates an SPL, kind of more of an SPL vehicle. So if you go like a 1 to 3 ratio, like you just got a massive top chamber, you're really kind of creating just an SPL beast, and you're not really going to have as much lows. Well, you'll still have lows, but it's you're going to be disproportionate, that much louder on your highs. Okay. Oh, I think I've got some information here. Yeah, going bigger on the top front chamber and shrinking the rear chamber may narrow the bandwidth, but add some SPL. This is kind of something that a lot of users have talked about, but some users have the exact opposite response. I think I put this in here because I felt like it was important, but it is hard to kind of every vehicle is so different, every build's so different, that I think sometimes this won't hold true. Okay, bottom and rear chamber port size. This is really important. So typically between 5 to 8 for an aero port and 6.5 to 9 for a slot port is probably where you're going to want to be. I do have to tell you that some people do talk about doing like 4 square inches or even like 3.5 per cubic foot. I think what they're designing is basically a 4th order that's like a leaky 4th order. Okay, so they basically, the port is just undersized, and they turn their 6th order into a 4th order. And so I really, guys, don't go too small. It's kind of a trend lately for people to just go smaller and smaller and smaller. I think with the massive subs they've got, maybe they're just pushing so much power, they're getting performance out of it. But here's an example. Okay, so Sundown U Series sub, you go 6 square inches of the port if you want wind. So 6 square inches per cube. And this cube is based on the bottom chamber. So if that bottom back chamber, the smaller chamber, is 10 cubes, then you'd go like 60 square inches. Okay. Now, at the same time, up here, it says, let's see, go with 8 square inches support for SPL. So there's the trade-off. Do you want more SPL or more wind? You might lose 2 dB just making your port smaller for more wind. And I still, even though this is not a written rule, this is just a suggestion. And I would still recommend, even if you're like, oh, I want to do the 6 square inches because I want to make it windy, I would recommend making it a little bigger. Start with like 7, and then slowly squeeze it off, slowly add some to it till you're happy. You can use test, kind of feel how you like the wind, listen to how you like the sound. You could always get a sound meter and do some testing if that interests you. Always go a little bit bigger, or at least make your a port adjustable so that you can try a little bit bigger size as well. Now the X series, as an example here, 7 square inch support for wind, 9 for SPL. Just once again, kind of a general rule. See, when your sub has more excursion, if you're using high excursion subs, you need to go with bigger port. So that's why I got these two in here as an example. If you've got maybe like the Sundown E series sub, you may not need as much square inches per port. These are just kind of ideas or suggestions. Certainly do not stick with it. Try different stuff. Okay. Top and front chamber port size. So you're going to start as high as about 25 square inches per cubic foot based on the top front chamber size for port opening. Use 3 to 6 inches of depth on the port. If you've got a big 6 order, you're gonna have a really small. And let me put it like this. Okay, here I'm at the 12 volt 12volt.com. Here, I'm move my, there we go. You can see up here the 12volt.com. This is where I love to come to do my calculations. And right here I'm doing a slot port calculator, and I did 30 cube top box. So let's say you've got, a massive top box, and you've got, I did the 30 and 25 square inches per cube. And then let's say we were trying to do 50 hertz. Watch this. Okay, look at that. 4.34 inches. And when you're dealing with something this big, this slot port calculator is going to be off. I'm just warning you guys, on the big build like that, you can expect to be off by a few. Let's say, let's see what 55 does. Look at that. -3 inches. You can't do -3 inches. So if you did a 3060 build and you're trying to hit 60 hertz up here, look at that, -4 inches. So what you have to do is you have to shrink this. So let's say we'll go down to maybe 20 square inches, and oh, sorry, we have to actually open it up. Go to 30 square inches. Look at that. 35 square inches. Oh, let's say 40 square inches per cube now, and look at that, 1.35 inches. Okay, so you want to start with a big opening, really big, and that's why you notice they're massive. And then what you start to do is you slowly shrink the port size. Now, what you can do is you can use a clamp meter to test your amperage. And once it's in the vehicle, because the vehicle is going to have a big determination on that tuning. Once it's in the vehicle, then you're going to put an amp meter on the line coming from the wire coming from the amp to the subs, and you're going to slowly run through frequencies to figure out exactly where you're tuned. You can also use an SPL meter. I think getting an SPL meter if you're designing a big 6 order is really almost a must. Okay. Let's see here. Round over on the port edges. So a lot of people like to take up like a 4-inch PVC, cut it in half, and then use that round over to help kind of usually again a little bit of SPL. And let's see here. Here's a note for like SPL nuts. If you tune the box, the top and front chamber, tune it to match your cabin, because typically you're gonna wall, like B-pillar wall to do this, which is like maybe even C-pillar wall, and so the rest of your cabin is gonna be small. So you might be at your Helmholtz resonation in your cabin might be 60 hertz, and if you match this to that, it's gonna get loud. All right. Brace the box significantly. Use several layers of wood. Brace internally. Feel for flex. Brace externally if you can. I mean, you want this thing rock solid. Okay, one other thing I'd like to mention, that when we're talking about the tuning, especially for the bottom, we talked about the top being set to the cabin. The bottom, if you're familiar with quarter wave, so I'm going to draw this box again. Okay. So remember, this is your sub box, and sub, sub, sub. So here's the 6 order that we're designing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about quarter wave theory here for you, because this is kind of also really important. And here is your front chamber. Okay, and then your dash. Let's say your windshield's like right here, and your car, right? And so here's your vehicle, and you've got your seats like right here. Okay, so what a lot of people do is they design the quarter wave. I'm going to use a different color here. Go with blue. So the quarter wave is once it exits the port right here, this sound goes all the way up there to the front of the glass, okay? So this length from the port opening to the front of the glass, they set as a quarter wave. So real quick, let me see if I can do quarter wave sound calculator. Let's see if one of these is like good. Okay, so let's say you've got 15 feet. Okay, so what you want to do is find the quarter wave for that. Let's see what 25 hertz is. Ooh, 15 feet is going to be pretty low, isn't it? That's perfect. Just throwing some in here. There's probably a quicker way to do it. Probably a calculator you could use. Okay. 15 feet. Okay, so 15 in a quarter wave. So here it's saying 19 hertz is, we'll just say 60 feet. And the quarter, which would be, 1/4 of that, would be 15 feet. So if you tuned that port to 19 hertz, that back port to 19 hertz, that is going to be the distance from the port to the windshield, and it's going to give you a boost, quarter wave boost, and it's going to get louder there. So just something else to keep in mind as you decide on what frequencies you want. You can kind of measure where you think your port's going to be all the way to the front, and might consider using that to help. Anyways, guys, I hope this helped. Be sure to add feedback and comments in the bottom. I'm going to include a lot more information in this one. And if you like this one, I can build this out for the negative. This is a positive ratio. I can build this out for the negative ratio, 6 order, or other boxes if you're interested in other boxes. Some of them I'm still learning about. But guys, I love you. I hope you find this information awesome, and be sure to share it around with your friends. And until next time, cheers.